Right, so we're going to talk about long division. When you have a problem that you have to use long division with, so let's say that we are going to do 15,532 divided by 2. Okay, that's a big number. That's a tough problem to tackle. So what we do is we make sure that we put the numbers in the opposite way. So the first number always goes on the inside, and the second number always goes on the outside. Right, and then what we have to look at is we always have to follow the divide, multiply, subtract, bring down. So first I have to look at 1. How many times can 2 go into 1? We know that the answer to that is 0. Okay, and putting up boxes might help you keep your numbers in order, so I would suggest doing that. So 2 goes into 1 0 times, so that's my divide. 0 times 2 is 2. That's my multiply. Then I have to, 0 times 2 is 0. And then I have to subtract, so that's 1. So that's my subtract. Now my next step is to bring down the 5. All right, so now I'm going to show this in a different color. I have to figure out how many times does 2 go into 15? 2 goes into 15 7 times. That's the divide. 7 times 2 is 14. That's the multiply. 15 minus 14 is 1. That's the subtract. And then now I have to bring down the 5. That's the bring down. Now I can move to the next step. I have to divide. 2 goes into 15 7 times. So that's the divide. 7 times 2 is 14. That's the multiply. 15 minus 14 is 1. That's the subtract. And then now I have to bring down the 3. Right? Now I have to divide, because I have to go back to the top. So 2 goes into 13 6 times. That's my divide. 6 times 2 is 12. That's my multiply. 13 minus 12 is 1. That's my subtract. Now I have to bring down. That's my last step. Now because I still have numbers, I still have to keep going. So 2 goes into 10 5 times. That's my divide. 5 times 2 is 10. That's my multiply. 10 minus 10 is 0. That's my subtract. And since there are no more numbers left, I do not have to bring down. So I can't skip the bring down until I have no more numbers left or no more remainders. Right, so then I can look and see that my answer is 7, 7, 4. I'm sorry. There's no 4 in there. 7, 7, 6, 5. So I count 1, 2, 3, put in my comma. It's 7,765. Right, so that's just a quick review on how to use long division. If you take a look at long division with zeros in the middle, so if I do 5,035 and I divide it by 5, one of the biggest mistakes that students like to make, so we put the 5 on the outside, 5,035, we'll bring up our seats. One of the biggest mistakes that students make comes in this next step. So we can put the divide, multiply, subtract, bring down. So 5 goes into 5 once. There's my divide. 1 times 5 is 5. There's my multiply. Subtract is 0. I have to remember to bring down the 0. We can't skip that step. One of the steps that students often skip is bringing down that 0. We have to look at this and say, okay, bring down. Now go to the next one. 5 goes into 0 0 times, and we can't just stop because we still have numbers left at the end. So 5 goes into 0 0 times. That's my divide. 0 times 5 is 0. That's my multiply. 0 minus 0 is 0. That's my subtract. Now I have to bring down the 3. Right, now we can keep going. So 5 goes into 3 0 times. Let's divide. 0 times 5 is 0. It's the multiply. 3 minus 0 is 3. That's the subtract. And now I have to bring down the 5. Okay, and I forgot to check off that we brought down that other 0. So if this helps you to check and make sure that you did all your work, you can absolutely use colored pencils to make sure that you brought all the numbers down that you were supposed to. So now I have to divide. So 5 goes into 35 7 times. 7 times 5 is 35. That's my multiply. 35 minus 35 is 0. And I don't have any left, and I have 0 as a remainder, so I can stop there. And I know that my answer is 1007. So we have to be careful not to skip the zeros that are in the middle and not to skip the zeros that are on the sides. One of the other mistakes that students like to make is when they get to the point where they have, so let's draw this up again. And they say, oops. So this goes in once, minus 5 is 0. They bring this down and they say 0. What students forget to do sometimes is to bring down that next number. So they look and they say, oh, 5 goes into 0 0 times. Well, in this case, it would have kind of worked out for them. But now what students do is they say, okay, 5 goes into 3 0 times. You know that your answer had to look like this. There's too many zeros here. You have to remember all of your steps and to make sure to bring down that 5 before you do your next number. So that's where these boxes will help. If you don't have a number inside of that box, you cannot do any division before bringing that number down. And the last piece that I want to show you is when you have numbers that are going to work well together. So if you have 48, let's say 4,800 divided by 6. If you look at this and break it down, you know that 6 and 48 are compatible. So I know that I can do 48 and divide that by 6, and that's going to give me 8. Now, because there's no zeros here, but there are 2 zeros here, I have to add 2 zeros to my answer. All right, so if there are no zeros, then I keep all the zeros that I had left over. Let's look at a different way. So what if I had that same number, so 48, and we make it 4,800 divided by 60. First, I'm going to just ignore my zeros and know that I can do 48 divided by 6. And I know that that gives me 8. Well, then I can look here and say, well, here's 1 0, so I can cancel out this 0. I still have 1 0 left though, which means I have to add that to the end of my answer. So 4,800 divided by 60 is actually going to give you 80. And I'll take this away here and just show you that that 0 that was left over gets added to the end of this answer. And we can try one more. Let's take that 4,800 and let's divide it by 600. Again, I'm going to concentrate on the 48. And I'm going to divide it by 6, and I know that that gives me 8. So I know that my answer has to have an 8 in it. However, because I have 1 0, it cancels out a 0 here. 2 zeros, it cancels out 2 zeros here. So my answer will actually just be 8.